just coming up to one of several bridges along the railway walk. Some of them go over things, some of them allow other things to go over the railway walk. In this case, we're about to cross the Tyne. We're just outside of Ormiston here, so technically I think this is still the Tyne water rather than the River Tyne. It doesn't become the River Tyne until Pencaitland, and the meeting of the waters there, or Pebble Island if you're under the age of 30, which is where the Tyne water meets the Burns water and then officially becomes the River Tyne. Since I'm a countryside ranger, it's probably my job to talk about wildlife from time to time, and we found something interesting here. Apart from the fact that this is an oak tree, which is interesting enough in itself because oak trees are brilliant, I'm hoping you can make out this sort of brown lump that's on the branch there. That's a gall, and you find all sorts of different types of galls on trees, particularly oak trees actually. And this is the remains, it's a bit of a tatty individual, but this is the remains of what's called a knopper gall. That's Knopper. And these are formed as a result of as a tiny wee wasp that lays its eggs in the buds of the oak tree, and this leads to this sort of distorted growth which surrounds the egg and protects it, and eventually the wee wasp will crawl out, and sometimes you can, I don't know if you can just make out the small holes in the gall there, which is probably where the wee wasp came out. Good, so here we go, we're going off road for a wee minute. That's Lee over there, and if you see a large hairy black beast running around, that's Daisy the dog. There she goes. So we're just at the corner of Woodhall picnic site now, which is a wee woodland next to the railway walk just outside of Pencaitland, and we're going to go for a short exploration in there and see what we can find. We're just wandering through the woods here, and every so often we're coming across these little areas of disturbed ground where something's been digging. One just there, another one over here, and I think a pretty good guess would be that these are signs that badgers have been here. They've been feeding. These are foraging signs left behind. Stuffle marks, they're known as. Badgers eat pretty much everything, or anything that can get their paws on, that is, of course. But they're particularly fond of worms and beetles and things like that. So they'll do a lot of digging in order to get to them. What we're actually looking for in these holes, or what we're really hoping to find, is some badger poo, because badgers build themselves little latrines. So if you are out in the woods and you find lots of little holes full of animal, what shall we say, droppings, for want of a less polite word, then it's a very good indication that badgers are around. Still at Woodhall, we're in the sort of bottom southeast corner of the woods at the moment. It's a very small woodland, this actually. You can get around it in 10 minutes, but it's quite diverse. This bottom corner is a favourite of mine because it's full of silver birch trees, as I hope you can see, and birch are just wonderful trees, but that's just my own opinion, I suppose. Woodhall's actually a strange one because it's a very natural looking place, but it's only semi-natural at best, because it was planted up in the 60s after it was basically, it used to be a colliery, it used to be a coal mine here, and the mines disappeared obviously, and the bings that were here were flattened and all planted up with trees. So these these woodlands are only around about 50, 60 years old at best, but still pretty lovely for all that. We're in another section of Woodhall now, which is a kind of crossover between the area of birches that we saw earlier, and then there's an area which is dominated by various pine species. And every so often you find a dead tree hanging around. And this one that we've got in front of us here, oops, sorry for the wobble, is an old pine tree, and I hope you can see the largish hole towards the top of it. Now that has been a nest of a great spotted woodpecker at some point. The hole would have been smaller than that originally, but it's kind of broken open a wee bit. So we've got woodpeckers nesting throughout these woods, to be perfectly honest. I'm surprised we haven't heard one yet. But that's partly why it's so important to leave dead wood standing sometimes. You know, people sometimes say, oh, you need to tidy the place up a bit because there's all sorts of logs and stuff rotting away on the ground. But these are valuable habitats for invertebrates, insects and other invertebrates. And that in turn provides food for larger animals, including birds, including woodpeckers. So we're outside Woodhall again now, back onto the railway walk. We just stopped at a wee feature, something again myself and Lee were involved in, slightly involved I should say, in the creation of these. These are, well, we call them totem poles. Don't know if technically you should call them that or not, but we're working with an artist and a group of local people to create these a few years back, and each of them is related to a feature of the local economy or the local wildlife. So we've got one at the back here. You actually can't see them terribly well at the moment because they used to be painted, used to be very colourful, and we've kind of let them just fade over time. That was part of the plan, to let them fade naturally. So now they're almost devoid of colour. But the one at the back here is all about the wildlife, so it's got doggerels and wren and kestrels and things like that on it. The one in the middle was related to one of the major industries in this area, which was the coal mining. Mentioned it a few times. So you won't be able to see it from there, but it's got patterns of fern-like plants on it as towards the bottom, which were the plants from hundreds of millions of years ago, which later formed the coal. And it's also got the diamonds here, which were painted black because the coal known as black diamonds. And then the one in your foreground, which is all to do with the local market garden industry. So there's soft fruits and things on there, raspberries and strawberries and that kind of thing. So yeah, just one of the wee features that you find dotted around on here. Okay. Just heading back towards Ormiston Station now and towards the end of our walk, but just to emphasise the importance of the area for wildlife. You can see the trees and other vegetation either side of the railway walk, and there's a lot of hawthorn in there, and on the hawthorn there are a lot of berries, and although you probably can't pick it up over the mic here and over the sound of me blethering, there's a lot of birds in there. We've got robins, I can hear wrens, I can hear blue tits. The other thing that you often find along here are bullfinch, which we saw earlier, and also at this time of year fieldfare and redwing, which are winter visitors, members of the thrush family. Spend the summer, they breed up in the northernmost Europe, actually through Scandinavia and into Russia, and then when it gets a bit chilly they head to sunny East Lothian. Well, not all of them, some of them head to sunny East Lothian, and they eat our berries. Okay, so we're back at Ormiston Station, back up onto the platform, and we've basically finished our walk for the day. I hope that's given you some idea about what goes on the Pencaitland Railway Walk. We've just covered a very small section of it, to be honest. There's way more to see and do, and you know, it's here, it's available for you to explore anytime you want to. So that's it for our walk. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.